Hi, my name is Andrew Carrillo. This is part 2 of my creativity project, and let's just dive into this. Boom. So, who is the creative person? Sorry, I thought I hit it. Stephen Mama defines creativity as problem solving with relevance and novelty. This idea helped me to realize that the definition that you know creativity by really depends on the context of the situation you find yourself in. If you are someone who creates things, like you are a new product designer, then creativity for you is creating that new product. But if you're like an interior designer, then creativity for you is putting a couch in one part of the living room and then the lamp in another. Creativity is not defined by one thing. We already learned that previously, but I had thought that creativity was just what it is you thought it was, and that was it. But really, what you think of it as depends on the context of which you use creativity or which you think of creativity, and that is something that I really found out more about in this learning. No. Boom. Talking about learning, the Creative Life podcast was really thought-provoking when it came to myths. I honestly had never really thought about myths of creativity before this. And with that said, the myth that surprised me the most was the idea that you can to create content and then pick an audience. Now, I know like it kind of makes sense that you would find an audience and then create content for it, but when it comes to creativity, being how do I put it, true to yourself does take precedence over a lot of things, and the idea that if you were just making stuff for an audience, it's kind of selling out isn't quite true, because you can still be very true to yourself creatively and appeal to an audience, and I thought that was very interesting. And I was just talking about real world examples with that first thing when I was talking about what creativity means to you, and that idea can also kind of apply here, where it's like, why is creativity important to all companies and organizations? Well, creativity, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of people, is probably the most important skill in the work world today, because a lot of processes of things have been automated. So all that's really left are the parts that require creativity. Employers don't need more people to do the same thing that all their current employees or machines are already doing for them. They need people to bring in new ideas. For example, let's say a company has 100 people that do a job one way. They don't need any more people to do that job. They'll look to hire more people that can do the job and add something to it, or do the job that these 100 people aren't already doing. Another real world example that I could think of would be, let's say that you want to work for a business that creates toys and games. They don't need people to work the conveyor belt to put together the toys and games anymore. The machine does that for them. They need somebody to come in and think of new toys and games, or think of ways to market those new toys and games. Also they need like engineers and stuff, but those jobs are mostly already taken. So you need to look and you need to be creative to get the jobs that are still there, and so that there can be progress in the work world. And when it comes to creativity, there are two main pathways when it comes to thinking about it. There is divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Divergent thinking is brainstorming, and convergent thinking is more about evaluation. I really liked the short YouTube video, the Divergent versus Convergent Thinking with John Spencer. It was a fun way to visualize and think about convergent and divergent thinking side by side. Divergent thinking is more broad. It's just coming up with a bunch of ideas and then just going with it. But convergent thinking is more methodological, if that's the best way to put it. As in, you think of those ideas, yes, but then you also look through each of them and evaluate your best course of action. Personally, I think of myself as more of a convergent thinker. I come up with a lot of ideas, and then I think about which ones I really think are going to work out for me, and I go from there. But enough about me. Let's talk about creative change. The 4 P's. It is person, process, press, and product. And after reading about the 4 P's in our textbook, I couldn't help but think about Uber. I knew I had to come up with an example, and I just honestly can't think of any other business that has emerged in my lifetime that is quite as creative as Uber. I mean, think about it. So it started with the person, right? Garrett Camp became set on this idea of creating a service that would allow you to order a ride from your phone after him and a friend couldn't get a cab after a text conference. Garrett Camp at this point was already a pretty established entrepreneur. He had just sold a company. He was sitting on a lot of money, and he was just looking for a new idea, and it hit him there. And then after the person came the process. Camp was able to convince his fellow entrepreneur, the same one that he couldn't catch a cab with, to be the chief incubator for Uber. They took the idea from being a timeshare limo type deal to the personal ride kind of deal it is today. And I mean, it's insane how amazing it has been, like how successful it has been. And then that's where the environment, or for the sake of the piece, the press is. They got millions upon millions of dollars in funding from their app from investors, such as Jeff Bezos and Benchmark. And then after their environment played its part, the product was created. The app launched with great success. It had its first ride in 2010, and to this day, Uber is the leading service of its kind. I personally have never even called a cab or used a cab or a limo. If I need a ride, I call an Uber. That is going to be it for this presentation. I will see you all next time in part 3.